Hey guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin'. Today we're talking early fall jerkbaits. Whether you're a beginner and you just want to know which bait to throw, or you're a guy who does this a lot and you want to fine tune it to catch more fish, we've got you covered. Getting on a wide open jerkbait bite is one of the most amazing things that you can experience as a bass angler. I would say it ranks second only to a wide open topwater bite. A jerkbait is special. The way bass attack a jerkbait is special. It's this cat and mouse game where your bait is darting and moving and the fish are repositioning, trying to figure out how best to ambush this thing. It's really a lot of fun. If you're in clear water where you can actually see this playing out in real time in the water in front of you as a bass tracks your bait, you will never forget the experience. Jerkbait fishing is special, and we are headed into the best time of year to throw it, starting right now. Now, a jerkbait will work year-round, but it shines in the cooler water months. This early part of fall into mid-fall, to me, is the peak, and here's why. The fish are relatively shallow, the fish are aggressive, their metabolisms are high, and as a result, you can catch them on a whole variety of baits. This is an amazing time of year to learn how to throw a jerkbait because the fish's aggression is so high that even if you don't have it perfect, you can still catch some fish. As we head into winter, you need to be more dialed and your baits need to be more dialed. But we don't have to worry about that right now. Right now, you just need to pick up a jerkbait, get out there and start fishing it, and you will be amazed what you see. Now, we can go as far down this rabbit hole as you want to go. And in fact, in a later video, sometime next month, we're going to do exactly that. We'll take a deep dive into fall and winter jerkbait fishing. We'll look at a ton of baits. We'll go in depth on color theory, different retrieves, different styles, all of those things. Today, we're going to keep it a little simpler than that because my goal today is simply to convince you to pick up a jerkbait. You don't want to be the last guy to the table. You want to be out there on the water, throwing this as it's happening, taking advantage of that, catching fish where other people are wondering what's going on, why you're the guy catching the fish. You want to be first, not last. So today we're going to keep it pretty simple. I've got a handful of baits here. And if we break them down by size, it's even more simplified. So I have three, we'll call them full-size baits, three mid-sized baits, and two finesse baits. And you do not need all of these. You need one, maybe two or three tops. And one will be just fine. In fact, let's start there. Whew, that sun popped out. Got a little warmer. I'm gonna put my hood on here. If we could only have one, and this is hard to narrow down, even when I've got a handful of baits, it's hard for me to pick just one because I'm fanatical about tackle and I love a bunch of these baits for different reasons. But if you could only have one, budget is out the window, just grab the best bait out of the bunch, the one where you could go almost anywhere and you're going to get a bite. It's going to be this bait right here in this color. From Megabass, this is the Vision 110. This specific color is called Matte Shad. This bait is incredible. This bait, the Megabass Vision 110, is the gold standard of jerkbaits. It is the bait that all other baits are judged by. And that says a lot. If in any category, I don't care if it's a rod, a reel, a bait, whatever bait sets the bar, that is permanent. No matter what comes today, tomorrow, 5 years from now, it will forever be judged against a Vision 110. So if you are only going to grab one and you just want to give it a try, you literally cannot beat that bait right there. that bait gets bit in virtually any circumstance. Now, we're about to talk about different baits for different categories, different colors for different situations, and I'll go back on some of those statements just a little bit, but I want you to understand how you can fine tune and dial it in to make a difference. But if a guy doesn't want to do that, forget the rest, grab that one right there and go fishing. You will catch fish. From there, let's just jump into the baits. Let's do it. Let's start with the full-size baits, and then we'll get smaller. Then we're going to talk some color theory. We're going to talk hook upgrades, because one of the biggest issues people have with jerkbaits is bending out hooks, not being able to replace hooks, because these baits all have specific sink rates. And if you start messing with hooks or split rings, you change how they sink or float or suspend in the water column, and the baits are ruined. So a lot of people just won't change the hooks at all, and they just continue to destroy their hooks until they just can't keep a fish on. You don't need to do that. We have literally spent the time with a gram scale weighing the stock components on various jerkbaits, and then weighing all of the different hook options on the market until we found perfect replacements for our most key baits. And I'm going to give you that. I'll talk you through it. And in the video description below this video, we'll link everything we've talked about here, everything we're going to talk about, and I'll give you those specific hooks and sizes for those baits as well. In that description, the links will take you straight to Tackle Warehouse. So to kick this thing off, back to that main category, the full size baits. There are only 3. The first one is that 110 that we just talked about. The second one is the 110 plus 1. The body is identical. The difference is in the size and the angle of the lip. The 110 is for shallower water. The 110 plus 1 will go deeper. Not only is it a larger lip at a different angle, but the bait itself sits at a different angle. So the 110 sits relatively flat in the water, about there, whereas the 110 plus 1 sits a little steeper in the water, so it wants to dive deeper. It really just comes down to how deep the bass are and how deep the bait fish are. As you are making decisions about which bait you should throw, there's only a few things you need to know. One is, what size are the bait fish in your lake? And you can gauge that by watching, because often in the fall, you'll see bait fish in the shallows. You'll see them jumping, flickering, running from the bass, things like that. Or you can do a little bit of research on your lake. But either way, you'll find out what bait fish are in there, get a general size reference, and you can adjust accordingly. But if you don't know, if you just don't know what's in your lake, I have mixed feelings. Part of me wants to tell you to throw the medium-sized baits because you'll get more bites. But I think more of me is going to tell you to throw the full-size baits, because when you do get bit, you hook them on larger, stronger hooks, and the odds of landing those fish are much higher. So again, those first 2 baits, the 110 and the plus 1. The third bait is from Shimano. This is the World Minnow. The World Minnow is a very interesting bait because of that right there. That is called Flash Boost. That is not just some marketing gimmick. I have seen this work. I am convinced. I have watched fish react. So as you move this bait, the bait flashes, shines, it's throwing light, but when you pause and the bait is sitting dead still, the flash boost continues to move. And that secondary action, that shimmer at rest, I believe I have 100% seen fish that would have turned off decide to commit and eat that thing sitting dead still. Now, with these 3 baits, how do you decide which one to throw? Well, it really just comes down to how fish are positioned and what is important to you on a given day. So the 110 is the standard. That is the staple, right? If you could only have one, that's your bait. But if you need to get deeper, if you feel like the bass are deeper, maybe you're using forward-facing sonar, you have modern electronics, you can see the bass are deeper, go to that +1. The world minnow for me is when the bass are aggressive, when they are chasing bait fish, or when I'm covering large distances to catch them. This bait casts like a dream. I can throw it really far. I can also upsize my line a little bit if I want to. So I could throw it on 10 or 12 pound line, but I could even bump up to like a 14 if I wanted. If I knew I was around big fish and I wanted to make sure I got more of those fish in the boat, I can bump up my line. It's got really stout hooks on it. The stock hooks are amazing on that bait. In fact, the replacements I have up for them are basically replacements of the stock hooks. So if I want to cover a lot of water, be really aggressive, really work that bait hard, I like to throw that world minnow. Now we're going to stop right there for the full-size baits. That's it. Again, in a few weeks, we'll take a deep dive. That won't be the end. We'll jump down that rabbit hole together. We'll talk about different baits for different niche things, patterns that will come up. But right now, I just want you out there fishing. Get out there and start catching fish. So if your bait fish are a little smaller, or if your water is a little clearer, and it seems like it's a little harder to catch fish in your lake, try the mid-size baits. 3 baits in that category, and the way you're going to decide between them has everything to do with depth. So the first one, we're going to go from shallow to deep. The first one, also from Shimano. This is called the Zumverno 95 SP. What it looks like is a miniature version of the world minnow. And in many ways, it is. It's got flash boost in it. It's a really remarkable bait. However, where it is different is this bait is even more erratic than the world minnow. It's got more dart, throws more light, more flash, and the fish react to it incredibly well. I love throwing this little bait right here. Now, if we need to go a little deeper, all 3 of these baits are magic. Like, I couldn't just pick one, and I couldn't eliminate one if I wanted to. When we talk about baits, some baits, we like to call it the it factor. Tim and I love to use that term. That bait has it. That bait doesn't have it. Whatever it is that magical thing that makes fish react. All 3 of these baits have it. It just comes down to the depth that you need to reach. That's the only way I'm choosing between them. So shallow, mid-depth, we've got the +1. So Megabass Vision 110 Junior +1. So the slightly smaller version of the big brother. This bait has it. Within the Megabass line, I actually feel like this bait has more mojo, more magic, more it factor, whatever you want to call it, than the other baits in the line. For me, that's my gold standard. That is a remarkable fish catching bait. If you need to go even deeper, there is a +2, but it's not the same bait. We jump over to the X-nanahan +2. It's only a 2-hooked bait. It's a different body shape. It's a little bit shorter. You put them side by side. Little bit shorter, little bit fatter, but that X-nanahan +2 is another one of those baits that just has it. It just gets bit in so many different conditions and situations. 2 more baits. We'll go through them quickly, and then that's it for baits. We'll talk about some of this other stuff. So, one other thing that Tim and I have really gotten into, and this is not a surprise to you if you listen to us at all, we love fishing bait finesse. Finesse fishing with a bait caster. Now, whether you're into that or not, whether you like throwing a bait caster or a spinning rod is irrelevant. But we can all understand the advantage of going smaller, especially in the fall. There are a lot of juvenile bait fish. The shad spawned back in April, May, depending on where you are in the country. Bluegill spawned, crappie spawned. All those fry have now grown up, but they are not full size by any means. They're 2 to 3 inches long in the vast majority of the country. And those little bait fish, whether that's shad, panfish, little minnows, it doesn't matter. They're all juvenile. They're all downsized, and the bass eat them in the fall. With that in mind, there are some bait finesse jerkbaits that we have a lot of confidence in. And narrowing this down was difficult too, because this category has exploded for me. I've got, I don't know, 8 or 10 different bait finesse jerkbaits that I throw with regularity now. I mean, I'm throwing a lot of this stuff, but I narrowed it down to 2 just to keep it simple for you, just to get you going. Shallow and deep. Again, you're not even having to make decisions between, you know, should I buy all 3 of those? If you know your fish are up shallow, if they're chasing in the backs of pockets and it's shallow water, just get a shallow bait or 2. You're done. If you know your fish don't tend to go way back in that shallow stuff, you tend to catch them on deeper walls, get a medium diver, a deep diver. You're done. So, shallow, from Megabass again, no surprise there. They are legends in jerkbait fishing. We've got the X80 Junior. This little guy just catches them. It's just another one of those baits that's got it. And then one more from Duo Realis, the Rosante 57 MR. It's a tiny little bait, but it's a tiny little bait that's got amazing movement. Super exaggerated darting action, and the fish come unglued for that thing. It's got small hooks, but they're solid. The stock hooks on this bait are excellent. Fish it straight out of the pack. Just make sure you throw it on light line and you don't horse those fish, and you'll get them. I typically throw both of these on straight 7-pound fluorocarbon. That's typically what I fish them on. The bigger baits, my main gig, full-size jerkbaits, I typically throw on 12. Unless the water's really clear, then I go to 10. Mid-sized jerkbaits, I almost always throw on 10. Tiny jerkbaits, I almost always throw on 7. I have changed a lot through the years. I've thrown heavier, I've thrown braid to leader, but anymore I tend to throw a jerkbait on fluoro, and I'm very specific with the sizes that I throw. And I'll link all that stuff in the video description. Now, let's talk really quickly about the upgrades, because I think this is a huge deal. Then we'll talk colors and rods, and I'm keeping rods super simple today too. But the hooks themselves, the Megabass Vision 110 line, so the standard 110s, the 110, the 110 plus 1, and the 110 plus 2. If you want to be able to upgrade your hooks without impacting the weight of that bait at all, your best bet, I use Owner Hyperwire split rings, size 2, and then this is my hook from Gamakatsu, okay? And I'll link the specific hook in the video description, but it's that short shank treble, it's that nano coated treble, and it's the number 5. That is an excellent upgrade for the 110. Now, for the 110 Junior, as well as for the X-nanahan, I use the same split ring on all of these, but I go to the Gamakatsu, the standard round bend treble hook in a size 8. Size 8 for that guy there, the smaller one. Now, from Shimano, we've got the World Minnow and the Zumverno. And those are my other 2, I mean, just staple baits. And I throw them a ton, and it's a matter of time before I'm gonna have to replace my hooks. Now, the beauty of those 2 baits is that the stock hooks are incredible. They're great right out of the pack, but when it's time to replace them, I use a Hayabusa hook, okay? That's the TBL 930. For the Zumverno, the 95 SP, I use a size 8. And then for the World Minnow, I use a size 5. Again, we have taken the time to sit with a gram scale and weigh these things out to make sure that we're not impacting the way that these baits move and suspend in the water column. Now, your bait, in case you don't understand this, you can take the same Vision 110, you put it in different temperatures of water. Sometimes it will suspend, sometimes it will sink, sometimes it will float. Okay, you need to understand that because water changes as the temperature of water changes. So how baits move through it changes. Instead of going down that entire rabbit hole and trying to give you the right hook for 60-degree water versus the right hook for 75-degree water, what we have done is just find perfect replacements for stock hooks. If you want to modify from there, by all means. But these are perfect replacements for your stock hooks. The one other thing with those Hayabusas, I almost forgot, all of them are the NRB coating, which is a slick coating that helps you get better hook penetration. And the weight difference of having it versus not is minimal. So those are my hook upgrades. Again, I'll link all that in the video description for you. The one other thing I want to talk about is color on these jerkbaits. Okay, you've noticed as I'm picking them up, I'm sure that a lot of these are very natural colors, right? But some of them are more bold and aggressive colors, and there's some more sitting over here that are bold and aggressive. Without going too deep down the rabbit hole, again, we'll save that for next month. What I want you to recognize is that if you want to get on a jerkbait bite, if you want to go out and try it, if you want to know if they're eating it, throw the really natural colors. Matte shad, ghost minnow, things like that, smelt. Those are your colors that will tell you whether or not there's a bite, because the fish will eat them most often. That said, the bolder colors, and it doesn't have to be super bold, like see that chartreuse shot there on the tail on an otherwise matte finished bait? Or you can get bright and bold, or you can get really bright and really bold. All of my best jerkbait days, the days you're going to remember for the rest of your life, all of them have happened on bold colored baits. But the thing is, they don't eat them every day. So if you want to find a jerkbait bite, do it with the natural colors. If you want to dial in a jerkbait bite, if you want to find out if they're really firing, start cycling through those bold colors. And bold colors, a lot of times for me, it's chartreuse. Sometimes it's clown. And sometimes it's the bold whites, like a bone color or a white colored jerkbait, a pearl colored jerkbait. Those bolder colors, those are the ones that will get those bites going that you'll never forget. But it will not happen every day. And last thing is rods. You know, my standard rod, many of you know this, but I'll just tell you again. My standard rod, my favorite jerkbait rod, is from Shimano. In the X-Pride line, it's the 610 medium. To answer your question, it is not the glass rod. It's the standard medium, okay? That rod, paired to a Shimano Aldebaran with 10 to 12 pound fluoro, unbelievable. At any price, this rod is incredible. It's just truly remarkable how well it works the baits and lands the fish. It's very difficult to build a proper jerkbait rod. A lot of companies try and a lot of companies fail. Lucky for them, most anglers don't understand what is needed in a jerkbait rod, so they continue to buy them. But what you need in a jerkbait rod is a rod with a stiff enough tip section that you can snap the baits and get very erratic movement out of them without pulling them at all. But then you have to couple that. That's easy, right? A flipping stick could do that. Where it gets difficult is you then have to couple that with a rod that is soft enough in the midsection that you don't rip out these tiny little treble hooks. And that balance is extremely difficult. So I have said for years, and my opinion has not changed, that bang for the buck, that X-Pride 610 medium is the deal. If you need to save some money, if this setup is outside of your budget, I get it. You can go to the Corrado rod, which will bring the price down, still that 610 medium. You can also go to the Corrado 70 MGL. It's an amazing reel, and it will save you a bunch of money over an Aldebaran. The Aldebaran is more dialed, I get more distance, it's lighter, it's a joy to fish with, but it's not a requirement. That Corrado is amazing. It will do an excellent job. Now, I also spent a lot of time looking for a high-end jerkbait rod, taking it to the next level. And many times I was disappointed, but I finally found one. And I'm blown away by this rod. This is from Megabass. Action-wise, these two rods are virtually identical. The difference is that the Megabass is shorter. It's only a 6'5", so 5 inches less on that rod. So I typically use this for my mid-sized jerkbaits. That's what I personally use it for. But this is in the Megabass Destroyer P5 line. This is called the 110 stick, not the 110 special. This is the 110 stick. And then again, if something's not broken, don't fix it, right? I'm still paired to an Aldebaran, to that straight fluoro. I have been so amazed by this combo. It's lighter. So what it boils down to is how much are you going to throw a jerkbait, right? If you're not gonna throw a jerkbait very much, try to make do on some gear you already own. If you discover that this technique is for you, then you save up and you buy a quality combo. If you find out that this technique is one of your core techniques that you're going to do all the time, then save up and spend the extra money and get a combo that's just ultra light and just an absolute pleasure to fish with, and it just takes your whole experience to the next level. But I keep it very simple. Now, I have a different rod that I use for little bait finesse baits. I'll link that in the video description as well. And then with that, I think we'll wrap it up. I really wanted to keep it simple today. I know that we've jumped down a couple of rabbit holes, but all in, this is not very many baits. And again, I want you to take away that you don't need all of these. Even when I've narrowed it down, you don't need many of these at all. You can determine on your lake the depth that you want to fish, and that narrows it down. And then the size of the bait fish that you want to imitate, that will further narrow it down. And you're pretty much set from there. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Remember, we'll do a much more in-depth video sometime in the fall. We'll go down all the rabbit holes together. But again, if you enjoyed this one, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.